So today, I actually have a true hidden gem for you guys. This is a game that I've not heard of, and I would have completely passed on it just basically because of the name itself, and that's not fair. But it still has a very different name, and I haven't heard many people talk about it. The game is called Cricket, Jay's Really Peculiar Game. And I know it sounds weird, but I might think about passing on that game just because of the name. Like, I know that's not the right way to look at things, but it comes to certain images and names, those all go into factors when I'm purchasing a game, especially one that is $24.99. So I don't know if I would have checked out this game had I not gotten a review copy. So I do have to thank the publishers at PM Studios. They are amazing, and pretty much everything they've sent me has always been really good. So I really appreciate them on that, and they seem to be a publisher that chooses quality products. Now, before we get started with this review, please hit that like and subscribe button. Let's try to get to 2,000 before 2025. It would be amazing if we do. But if I'm honest, I'm not holding my breath. Anyway, let's talk about Cricket. So this is a very interesting game that I don't want to use a comparison to. There is a certain comparison that is pretty easy to make from a SNES game that's pretty popular now, that's kind of hard to find. And yeah, when you look at the navigation of this game, you look at the writing, the character style, there is some definite comparisons to this game. It obviously has taken a lot of inspiration from Earthbound, but I think that would be insulting to both the games, the audience, and the developers to use that comparison. It's just lazy because it did take inspiration from Earthbound. You can tell that just by the way that you walk around the city, you communicate with other people, how much other NPCs and characters are interactive. All of that is there, but there is a completely different story and just a completely different feel about the game. And as you start the game, you take on the character of Jay, who his mom has recently passed away from cancer, and you can tell that his house has been kind of neglected. There hasn't been or isn't anyone really there for him. It starts off very dark and kind of cold. You do luckily have your best friend Zach, who also has his own trauma, but we'll get to that later. You guys decide that you're gonna go get flowers for Jay's mom and put them on her grave. It's a very touching scene, and when you talk about something like that, it's hard to make that fun. It's hard to make that exciting, but they do. They don't lead off with, hey, we're gonna go get flowers for your mom's grave. No, but Jay does say he needs to go get flowers, and they decide to go have a little adventure. And this is really where you get the first taste of the town, and you get to see all the animals that are rabid and trying to attack you. At the same time, you also get to see a lot of the NPCs and meet some of the characters, and of course your first stop is the flower shop, where you come upon the shopkeeper who is pretty much knocked out, and he tells you that the flowers that you had ordered are basically stolen, and you see this like flower kind of person who stole the flowers, and you go on this wild chase through the forest, tracking them down, that really culminates in a battle with a gigantic dandelion. A huge dandelion. As you do overthrow the plot of the flowers who had decided to create this super pollen flower to kill the people of the town. And I have to say this, while you're doing all this, there is a ton of humor in it. Everyone from the NPCs, the bad guys, they all have funny little things to say, little jokes that are going on, while it's also incredibly touching. And that's why I really appreciate the writing of this game. It's so complex, and it's done in just such a way that knows how to pull on your heartstrings a little bit, but then also keep things light. But after that, you do recover the flowers, and you take them to your mother's grave, where again we have this touching scene, and we understand why he's called Cricket, or why the game is called Cricket, as that's what she used to call him. And just when things are looking at its bleakest and its darkest, a little girl comes flying down from the sky, crashing into the ground. Her name is Symphony, and she was apparently riding a street cone to the moon. Yes, a street cone. And she definitely got some air on that thing because she made a huge impact on the ground right by the graveyard. And with the introduction of Symphony, it's the exact same thing for every character, but I have to just acknowledge how well written the characters are. The dialogue between the characters. Again, she understands what's going on, and she understands it's a pretty heavy scene, and that Jay is, well, he's sad, he's depressed, he misses his mom. But at the same time, she's trying to keep things light, and she wants to take him on an adventure. And in fact, he decides to go with her, as they're going to head to a place called Yumilia. It's apparently on the moon, and it is a place that will grant any wish you want. And the boys are hesitant to go with her, so they decide to crash at Jay's house, and after another night of a sad dream, Jay wakes up motivated to go with Symphony and try to wish for his mother's health and wish for her to return. And this is really where the game kicks off, and you go forth on this massive adventure, you meet more people, you have all these different experiences, and if I'm being honest, if I heard about the game and the whole plot behind it of, hey, we're trying to bring a mother back to life who died of cancer because her little boy really misses her, I would honestly think, no, I don't want to play that. That just sounds way too depressing. And I think that that's what's so impressive about the writing and how it's not just one tone, is that it's actually very enjoyable and it's funny. The characters are multi-layered, which speaks volumes, again, to the writing, the designing, the character growth. All of that is really put on display to make a really fantastic game. And as we basically talked about the cornerstone of the game, the structure at which it's built, we haven't even talked about any of the other stuff about the game, and there's quite a few things to make note of. For one, just the art style and the graphics. I think they look great. It's very clear, but yet also kind of retro. It's almost like the HD retro look, if you will. I also really love the music. I think it does a fantastic job just coordinating with the entire game and the different scenes that go on back and forth. It helps set the mood in a game that often changes moods. And of course, we have the combat, which is my favorite combat style, or one of my favorite. This is turn-based. Now, if that turns off some of you, understand though that there are a lot of modifiers to this. Think of the kind of Mario RPG style where you can time certain hits so that they will do more damage. And when you do that, you actually store some energy, and you can then actually use this energy to give your character more power on like the next attack. And you can save this up quite a bit to do massive damage. You can also do teamwork attacks. So it's not just this bland kind of turn-based that we've seen before. They really do add quite a bit to it. And the fact that there is a large number of characters and friends that Jay meets along the way, that also changes the mechanics of the combat and the tactics in general, as each character is going to be good at certain things, bad at other things, and they all have their specialties. You know, like Jay is more of like a white mage, if you will. He's got the healing abilities, he's kind of squishy, he does have a little bit of offense, but for the most part, he's the one that can do the most healing for your characters. And Zack, which is one of the other characters you start off with, he's more of like the warrior style. He's really tough, he's strong, but has very little magic abilities or any special abilities. Now, all of this, like I said, will evolve as you add new members to your team, and you're able to try out different tactics and different teamwork abilities. So those are all the good things, and I do apologize for focusing so much on the story and the writing, but if I'm being honest, that's really just what sucked me into the game. I was actually laughing at the game. I enjoyed the way they talked. It was very modern, very relatable. But there are a couple things about the game that I do want to make note of, and one is it can be a bit triggering for some people, because a lot of the kids in this game have different traumas that they discuss and that they go through. Everything from like abuse to neglect to loss and death. Like, a lot of these things do make a very profound mark in the game. So, you know, some of that should be noted before you get into it. Also, I will say that the game unfortunately crashed on me a couple times, and there is not an automatic save. So if you didn't save, you lose all of that progress. And so for me, I would have to give this game an 8.5 out of 10. I would give it a 9 out of 10 once they get that fixed, and I'm sure they will. But that's just my thoughts on Cricket, Jay's Peculiar Game. I'm curious, have you guys heard about this game? Is this a game you're now interested in? I promise, it's not too heavy, even though it really sounds that way. It's really not. But anything and everything in that comment section below is so much appreciated. I really do love each and every one of you guys. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.